Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lowdown on Low Code. Hey, this one's going to take a little bit different direction than we normally have done in the past. And just to give you a sense of where we're going with this, at Analysis.tech, we've pretty much been dedicated full time for the last couple of years to the effects of AI, vibe coding, agents on the development environment. We try to keep that fairly close to what's going on around low code. And we've generated a lot of research on it. And among the things that we've really established as kind of our stake in the ground is there are a lot of really relevant vendors in this. And they come from different perspectives, and any one of these perspectives might be the right answer for your enterprise. So with that in mind, we've established that, integration could be a primary pattern that is interesting to your organization, or a traditional low code approach might be the primary driver for your organization, or more of a digital process automation platform, workflow, process type capabilities could be the right answer. So with that, we brought in three of the vendors who we've worked with for a long time, for whom we have a great deal of respect. And they've agreed to join us and sort of talk about the landscape here. In addition, we've brought in a practitioner and an old friend, and someone with whom we've done a lot of research in the past. So very quickly, we have Adam Seligman. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Workato. Hi, Adam. Good. Thank you for being here.
Hey.
Hey, we've got Chris Obdam. He is the CEO and founder of Betty Blocks, one of the real pioneers in this space.
Thank you, Rob, and a pleasure to be here.
We have Don Schuerman, an old friend from Pega. Don is the Chief Technology Officer in Pega and comes from a background in stand-up comedy, which tickles me every time I get a chance to say it. How are you, Don?
I'm great.
And lastly, we have thought leader and practitioner Jessica de Oliveira.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, guys, let's jump in because we've got a lot of things we want to cover. All right, so maybe we'll throw the grenade on the table. Low code is dead. Even people on this call have used the phrase low code is dead. And we're really interested in kind of the perspectives on that. We're moving into an era of vibe coding. We're moving into an era of agents. We're moving into an era of AI assisted development. And things are certainly going to change, but how are they going to change? And do we think low code is dead, sort of dead? Let's start with you, Chris, because you're the one who keeps saying low code is dead.
Yeah, there's nothing more fun than wrecking a whole category, right? So that's we will continue to say that. Now, I think low code is dead as we know it. I think that is how we see it. There are a lot of different influences why we believe that low code is dead as we know it. Of course, the first one, as we're discussing today as well, is also vibe coding and the dawn of AI in low code. It's not necessarily that vibe coding is killing low code or anything, because I think, right, we have adopted the vibe coding and AI generation theme for a longer time in our platform, and a lot of vendors are. So it's not necessarily the vibe coding thing that is killing low code, but it's more the model behind it. What I see, what vibe code brings to the table is direct access to your code, right? Flexibility, independence, less dependency. And I think that's also what we stand for at Betty Blocks, right? And I think that is a reason why low code is changing rapidly, and is in the old low code is dying at the moment, because you don't want to get stuck somewhere because the world is changing so fast. And if you have this vibe coding tool, and all of them will continue to evolve and get better, and you get access to your code there, and you have let's say a other low code platform, and you're stuck in that paradigm, and there's no way to leave that. I think, right, that is going to be a big topic. Another part of the death of low code is also the pricing as well, because if you have more flexibility, which you get with vibe coding, there's also a different price to it. And of course, you can't compare a vibe coding platform with a full-featured low-code platform, whatever the one it is. But there's a very strong influence of that movement towards platforms, low-code platforms as they are. So I think the way we see it, low-code as it is now is dying. But a new and youthful new version of low code, of course, is also emerging, which has embedded vibe coding into the platform and will solve the problems that we always solved.
Don, you've been on a world tour. Every time I look at LinkedIn, you're in another country talking about Blueprint. What do you think? Is low code dead, and what does this future world look like?
So I think if you go back in history, right, we had the concept of using business friendly metaphors to define our business processes and our applications before we called it low code. And I think we're going to have it after we call it low code. Right. And I think what isn't dead is this idea of needing to drive more and more transformation. So, as you mentioned, Rob, each of us on this call come at this amorphous blob of low code and AI from different perspectives. At Pega, we tend to look at it from the process and the workflow orchestration perspective. And when we look at what's going on in agents in AI, the profound challenge, I think, for organizations is being able to rethink enough of their business processes and their core workflows that they're not just bolting AI on from the outside, but they're actually integrating it in to a new way of doing work. And I think doing that is going to take a combination of actually using AI agents to do the redesign, like you've seen us do with Blueprint. And I think increasingly there are going to be vibe elements baked into that. So being able to chat with your Blueprint, be able to chat with your workflows designs and see them evolve. So I think it's going to change the way that we interface with a lot of these systems. But the core business drivers of needing to transform your processes and needing to drive more efficiency, needing to drive better experiences with your customers, they don't go away.
We'll hold that thought on how we're going to work differently and develop differently, because we're going to dive into that in just a moment. Adam, from the perspective of Workato, right? I mean, we see what's going on with Workato Go. We see what's going on with, a lot of the other products you're bringing to market. You're unambiguously moving further and further into the process and optimization world. How are things going to change, and what do you think about low code being dead?
I liked how Chris put it about it's a moment of change, and Don put it about outcomes and process. Like the whole, I've been doing low code for a while. The whole idea was you could help like more people get to better outcomes, right? So I totally embrace all this vibe stuff and coding assistance, but we're kind of in the middle of the story, not the end. I think the room next to me is a marketing ops team planning how we're gonna like nurture leads by region, by campaign and category, and run experiments, and like all that needs to be automated. But like they're using whiteboards and pens, and they're not using Claude Code today. So we have the ability to generate a lot of tokens of code, but none of those tokens, few of those tokens are getting deployed in the world of production, and few of those tokens are understood by business people. So I think these things have to come together. Like I think the idea that you could give a business person some format that they understand to achieve an outcome that they want to get to, and then the technologists are comfortable, it's secure, and it's going to run well, and Pega runs banks, like it's amazing legacy that that they've proven they can do this stuff. So I think what we're looking for is a union of these technologies. Just my personal opinion. We're trying to build that in our product, obviously, like everybody here is, but get teams to outcomes that really work for their business and take advantage of AI and transform the way they work and make all their different apps work together and their processes run better. But like give them the confidence they are like not leaking their business data or dropping leads or breaking customer trust. I think the union of all this stuff comes together is where the world is going. I'm happy to talk about Workato's product roadmap, but I think maybe we're all sort of directed on that journey, which is like, how can we take the lessons of, I don't know, I got 20 years of low code. Some of the folks here may have probably at least that experience, and put the union of that all together, what we can do with vibe coding and code gen and move to the future.
That's great. And I couldn't agree with you all more. These are a whole bunch of things that have to come together. That's why we brought this group together. It comes from different directions. There's different things that people are going to have to provide and think about within their enterprise. Jessica, while back, we hired a developer named Jessica de Oliveira to build some prototype software for us. You started off in a classic low code tool. You moved to a vibe coding tool. What are your thoughts on this?
As far as whether low code is dead or not, I think that low code is the life raft that AI needs, and they don't even know it, right? So we've done this already. When low code was the emerging technology at the time, we've gone through what was needed. Um, what happened with the project that we worked on, we found that yes, we did start off with traditional low code tools for backend and went on to utilizing a combination of low code, more advanced low code tool rather than no code tooling, and added on tools like Lovable and other app generation tools. So we did a combination of low code and AI tools for the best version of the application, right? Because low code itself is already established. All of what you need to happen, it we know what we'll get out of it. It's more predictable, right? So we did have some, challenges with generating front end with tools like Lovable and the other app gen tools, but it was more it was more about practice and it learning you rather than you learning it. So when it comes to as far as understanding whether low code is dead or not, when it comes to vibe coding, I think that these things need to marry. So I'm seconding everything that Adam is saying and Chris as far as like the evolution of what's happening with low code. So things are going to change, not just from a developer perspective and tool chain perspective, but just like practice and behavior and the amount of knowledge that we need to know in order to use these tools together and to use them safely.
Yep. And just an important note here. So Jessica changed out the tool, but we're talking about a prototype, right? We're talking about the classic thing that's going on with vibe coding now, where the prototyping works good, works really well. It's really cool. It's very sexy. We did not bring that application into production, which would have brought in a whole set of other challenges, right? That we really love platforms for. So guys, moving on to the next topic, we've been looking at this kind of different developer persona for a long time. And every time we bring in new opportunities like this, low code brought in different developer personas, Vibe, agent development, these types of things will bring in yet new types of different developer personas. Don, maybe we'll start with you and say how will the persona of the developer change as these tools become more pervasive?
So we're seeing two big families of personas emerge. And we've actually been working with one of your former Forrester colleagues, Clay Richardson, on actually sort of teasing some of this out.
Can't
But
do better than Clay.
what we're seeing is the emergence of what we've been calling the solution designer. So think of this as like, we used to call this person maybe the citizen developer. I think frankly, citizen developers got a little bit of a bad rap, especially inside the enterprise, as just rebranded rogue IT. Um, but I think of a solution designer as a business subject matter expert who is actually empowered to design the solution they want. Right. And, they might do that with some vibe tools like Lovable. They might do it with something like Blueprint. But I think the important thing is I want to then reduce the amount of rework necessary when we take that thing a solution designer has built and we hand it over to our other family of people who are the builders. Because I still think if you're going to deploy software at the enterprise, you need somebody thinking about security and APIs and reusability and componentization and all those things that actually allow enterprise code to be performant and scale. And so where we're really focused is how do I use the life draft of low code to provide a common structure so that what the solution designer talks about and then what the builders build are actually the same thing, so that I can take that prototype and actually pass it through, not rebuilding it, just finishing it so that it goes live faster and accurately reflects what my business wants.
It's great. Adam, what are your thoughts from the perspective of Workato? I mean, we look a lot at what Workato's up to, and a lot of it
Yeah,
is reaching out to the business user, right?
yeah, huge respect for Don. I was just in Austin. I love the two-step. He just tried a two-step. I'd love to get it a one-step. Like I really want our marketing ops people in the next room to build their own process for lead routing and maturation in Workato, and then it just runs, right? Like that is, I think we all aspire to get there, but feedback we hear from customers, we can do that. IT is like the governance they want, and then Workato lets the business teams in marketing or rev rec or FinOps or people ops, like, build the processes, the solutions as they want, and then just run them. And that's like magic today when there's not like a second long complex operations step. It's like a lightweight governance process, take an idea and go from idea to production. That's been a lot of the design of our product. That my peers here, built a lot of this in their products also. But I think that because of that, the reason why is because nobody wants the tax of a giant operations team to make things go. Like none of us have, I think, have wanted that for decades. And the idea that you can express your idea and go to prod and see the business impact fast, that's the magic. And vibe coding and code gen is doing an amazing job doing that for front ends, and is doing that for idea realization, but it's not taking it all the way to prod yet. Like full stop. You can't just take vibe coded stuff and go to prod. And so I wrote a piece, sorry if you'll indulge me, I wrote a short piece a week or so ago about abstractions versus substrates. Abstractions, these like high level tools, frameworks, libraries that coding tools can use, and they're really good at using abstractions. But then when it comes to running the stuff, you need some substrate. A substrate like Betty Blocks, a substrate like Pega, a substrate like Workato, or Replic's got a substrate. Vercel is a substrate. And I think that those substrates really matter, and companies should pick those well, because it's not just how fast can you railgun out code on an abstraction, but like, great, what substrate are you going to actually be able to run this thing on?
Hey, so just a quick call out to you guys, to the listeners here. If you're not following Adam, if you're not following Chris, if you're not following Don and Jessica on LinkedIn, on Substack, wherever they're publishing, do it. There is a lot of stuff which is just straight on thought leadership, really good thinking from people who've been at it for a very, very long time. You'll get some product in there too, but that's not a bad thing. But there's just some great pure thought leadership going on among all these guys. Chris, I think about Betty Blocks. I think maybe a little bit more focused on what had been the professional developer. Does that continue to be the case in this world, or does your target persona change a little bit?
No, I agree with Dom's split of the personas. We have tried to see if there's a third persona to it as well. That in the real world is not really happening, because although what we see, right, a lot of talk is about, is it production ready, right? Can you bring it to production? But I think that all depends also on the impact of the actual app. And as Adam was saying, sometimes you just want to ship something fast, and the impact and the risk is low as well. So if you have good governance in place for smaller apps, smaller audiences, right, you need less restrictions, because there's less risk. And for that group of people, there is a special persona, I think, as well, right? So it is maybe that solution designer, call it a citizen developer, upgrade, right? We always explain that you start as maybe a citizen developer, but what if you've been doing that for 3 days a week, right? Are you not becoming a professional developer? So there is also that in-between person as well, which is getting more and more traction. Because there's so much more to do, and especially with vibe coding entering the stage as well, and the tools with them, right? That audience is growing really fast as well. And maybe to add to the generation and taking it to prod as well, I think what's important to distinct as well is that there is code generation and there's application generation, right? So we don't directly generate code. We use AI to generate our meta system, right? And that generates code. So there are also different models to it as well, because a lot of people are looking a little bit too much towards the code generation only, while AI is just the creative brain nowadays, right? You wouldn't think of a computer being creative, but I like AI for all the creativeness it brings to the table, all of the things that my cool creative people didn't thought of. And then AI came like, hey, wow, this is cool. And has a lot of detail. So maybe that's something to add as well.
Hey, Jessica, Chris talks about that in-between person. I think you're kind of that in-between person, a little bit between business and IT, but I think your day job is really helping organizations learn how to embrace working like this, embrace developing like this, and getting them to understand sort of what it takes to build the programs around supporting this type of work. What are your thoughts around the personas?
I think that I agree with what everyone said about multiple personas. When we try to develop programming around governing low code, we tried to get a one person that could do it all. And in some organizations, or most, I should say, that tends to falter. It doesn't work out. But I do see that it's still necessary that we have multiple roles, that kind of like a factory line setup, approval systems, passing things off to a person to the next person, but also a need for every person to have a little bit of understanding of these, I guess, governance concepts and needs no matter what your role is. From a dominant perspective, you might be the domain expert in an area and you're contributing to the development of a solution, but you may need to know and understand what it takes or what context you need to give your software in order to get the outcome that you needed to get. We talked about this when we were building the prototype, right? I fed in the entire business and revenue model of this application that we were building so that it could understand, right? So that's like part of some domain expert. Like that goes into a little bit more into entrepreneurship and business and product and other things like that. That a person building the application, whether a citizen developer or solution designer, they have no idea of these things. So I think that the personas will eventually it broadens the knowledge gap in this way, and that they will need to know a little bit more of a little bit of everything, right? A little bit from other departments and other roles that they'll be working with as a developer or a solution designer.
And Jessica, are you available to help people through this journey?
Most definitely. I've actually developed programming around what we've learned from low code on how to better do it with AI and what we were missing. And the big thing was governance and organizational structure around that governance.
All right. So let's move into the
This
commercial
was-
interruption here
Can
and
I-
say, number one, reach out to Jessica on topics like this. If you'd like to interact more with analysis.tech, it's super easy to find us. We're at analysis.tech. We do have a lot of research on this topic that's available. Just give us your email and you can have the research. And we have research coming up with Jessica de Oliveira on the topic of how to set up programs for wider scale adoption. If you like this format, if you like this program, this is the first of two, at least two. And coming up here in a few weeks, we have another one of these AI assisted vibe coding podcast. John Reimer will host. Ryan Cunningham, corporate vice president of Power Platform from Microsoft, along with Jithin Bhaskar, the general manager of the platform AI development business at ServiceNow, and Sean Allen of Retool, who's a long time a voice in the low code space. So out of commercial and back into the more interesting stuff.
Hey, Rob,
Guys,
what Jessica said is just
Yeah.
totally spot on, and a really like nuanced but important examples of where the vibe coding stuff falls flat. All that organizational context from how governance works, like IT processes and security AppSec processes run, business structure, like how a business is organized and how they think about customers and marketing and revenue and products and projects and all that. How their systems work, and like the scheme of and data models of those systems, like how is the data organized in Snowflake and what custom fields they have in Salesforce that like is kind of buried inside those apps and needs to get introspected out. All of that is context that is in people's heads in different divisions, but is not making its way into the coding tools. And so I hope Jessica will help people, find those gaps and identify them that will make their processes with AI more effective. They can be written down. They can be introspected. Those connectors do have schema in them. The Snowflake does have, verified queries and things that'll make sense to the data model. The processes of how they do security are documented somewhere, but they're not making it all the way upstream to the coding tools. So hopefully Jessica will help guide people through that. Sorry for the interruption, but just such a great insight.
It's a good interruption. I think it's just a good level set around sort of the group that we have here. And I don't want to sort of say anything negative about some of the really cool pure play vibe coding tools that are out there. We spend a lot of time with them. We take them very, very seriously, but a lot of the things that those are being used to build, that is not the world that Workato or Betty Blocks or Pega lives in, right? Pega runs your insurance company. Pega runs your bank. Workato deals with all of your data. Betty Blocks is all over government and incredibly mission critical complex environments. And you don't mess with those things, right? If again, you go back to like the MIT study, in which, take it for what it's worth. 95% of these things fail. Embedded in that study was just, really clear indication. Governance, risk, compliance, integration people are shutting these projects down because they're being executed off the books. They're being executed in ways that just does not have all of the governance and all of the due diligence in, that a lot of vendors really can't afford to ignore. So Again, it's a complicated landscape. That's why we're really happy to have a lot of different voices. Guys, when we started analysis.tech, a while back, right? And I think this was especially true of John Reimer and myself, a couple of retired guys, and one of the areas that was just ongoing area of frustration for us was we had this vision that low code would get us out to the business, right? That we would be doing hundreds and hundreds of processes, hundreds of automations that would take things off of the spreadsheets, get them into managed platforms where they're visible, where they're manageable, where they can be reconfigured, where we can optimize them in a better way. And I would say we have some really interesting examples. We've had folks from Shell and GlaxoSmithKline and other places, NASDAQ, who've talked about having some success in that area, but is this the breakthrough? Is this where we get to have the business involved in a much more meaningful way in how our organizations are run? We'll start with you, Adam.
I don't know. I kind of object to the premise. I bet my peers do too. Like I'm blown away, but customers on this block do, our customers like Coinbase and Visa, Atlassian is a couple blocks down. Like they're running core business processes in Workato because it works, like they changed the way they do sales and marketing. They order to cash, run revenue, manage the life cycle of employees and vendors. And like they figure it out. They get it right once in Workato. It's easy to do that. There's AI that can make decisions and process things. And so we like many of my peers here have investments in AI to suggest improvements and run experiments in autonomous ways. So I was in Austin. We had a customer, Brilliant Earth, on stage. They do like diamond rings and stuff, and they told a story of how they meet customer demand and build custom jewelry from 1 million SKUs and meet, promise of availability and recover from supply chain challenges. And they're doing this while some of their suppliers, this is kind of an amazing story, are giving them invoices and shipping updates written longhand on paper from mines in India. That's like upstream where the source is. So I think all of our peers have some great stories. I think the Vibe stuff is super exciting. Like we've done work with Replit. We're huge Anthropic partners. What's capable of these tools is absolutely amazing, and they're going to shape the industry. And all these same companies have to run RevRec and process their employee paperwork and onboard and offboard vendors and make sure invoices get paid, but the wrong invoices don't get paid. We do that. Many of my peers do that, and it's maybe not quite as sexy, but it's running those companies.
So I agree, but I think there's also the rest of your processes, right? And where there's potential, optimization around the rest of your processes. Chris, how does Betty Blocks think about this?
Well, you definitely see that there is a complete new audience being unlocked towards doing automations and building apps with vibe coding. But I think we shouldn't forget the automation space wider as well, right? There are great platforms like Workato as well, but if you look at like N8N, right? So that is also very much a citizen development platform because people use it like a band-aid to everything. So I think it is continuously increasing the amount of business people that are doing technology, and year over year it will continue to increase. Will this be the big revolution? I don't know, because if you look at the people who are now using the vibe coding platforms, they will be the same people who would have jumped on low code when low code emerged. So I'm not sure if we are really right on the verge of a business revolution. Also, because I believe that those people have a day job solving other things, and their big priority is not to automate everything, right? So maybe too much of a nuanced answer here, and I agree with Adam that there's so cool stuff happening in the business. I don't think we need a revolution. And so I think we're doing quite fine, I think, is what I'm saying here.
Hey, Don, what do you think? And I want to maybe have in the background that I just saw you guys had an announcement about getting rid of all those Lotus Notes applications.
I think there's a lot of truth. Like I agree with Adam. Like to some degree, we're doing this fine. Like I got Lloyd's Bank running hundreds of processes, right, that are continuously being optimized that touch basically every moment of the client life cycle. But at the same time, I think there's a power of AI to map, if I'm going to borrow Adam's terms, the abstract to the substrate in ways that used to involve a lot more sort of manual thinking, training, consultancy. And I think a lot of what we've been able to do with Blueprint is allow people to very quickly go from a concept of the business process. We actually can pull in all that context about the existing application state and process diagrams. We now can pull in context of things like, what does your current Lotus Notes app do if you want to replace that? And then lay out, here's what the process could look like. And what we're laying out for you now is an abstract that the business can understand, a process diagram, data models, all that kind of stuff. But we're doing it in a way that you can click a switch and actually implement it in Pega, put it into our substrate and get the enterprise scale and security and everything that our clients have come to depend from us. So I actually think that is a revolution. I think that we've seen just a dramatic explosion in the amount of people who are looking at ways to change their business processes and modernize their systems. And I think the revolution is a little bit about what we've done in the tech, but also I think a little bit about the realization that businesses have that they need to get off legacy and they need to rethink their core processes if they're going to fully take advantage of everything that AI could potentially offer to them.
Jessica, what are your thoughts on this?
I think that all the points were valid behind how the relationship is happening, evolved or not evolved. But I think most of it is going to happen in the organization, not necessarily in the software. While the software is providing a lot, I think the organization has a responsibility that they don't know that they have. I think for vendors, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, I think that organizations put a lot of responsibility on the vendor to make this kind of thing happen. And it actually is going to come down to the culture of the organization and how that changes when you do adopt AI or tools that are embedded with AI. When we try to do this with low code, we try to make governance and change things in a vacuum to only people who are developers or non-technical. And we put a lot of emphasis there, but this is a complete organization overhaul that has to happen in order for even the continuous adoption of tools to happen and for that relationship between IT and the business to be maintained. I think it comes down to the culture of your organization and how governance is happening and what programming looks like and what enablement and supports look like in the organization for you even to get to the point of keeping adoption in place with software.
So guys, we've been through some, you guys are in the midst of this, right? This is not theoretical. You're out there doing it. You're out there doing it with real clients. And the feedback you've had, what you provided to the audience so far is just gold. But let's have a little fun and let's go into predictions land, which is, always fun to close out on. And maybe we'll start with you, Chris. What is the future? What looks radically different in terms of work and processes in the enterprise as we fully embrace this way of developing?
I think enterprise software is going to radically change towards what it was, especially looking at big enterprise ERP systems. With AI app generation, like vibe coding platforms and how we offer it, you can really tailor a experience per role. So that means that the position of an ERP platform, right, will change as well, and it will go more towards a business rules engine and an API platform, and that you use vibe coding platforms to tailor the experience of a specific role and specific user to the maximum. And I think that is something that right now is radically different. So it will require a different mindset as well and a different approach of IT to facilitate that as well, because optimizing those experiences is going to be so easy with AI, and you can adopt at least the front end of it so easy to your latest changes in your workflow. That means that you need to offer a different landscape as an IT organization. It's going to be hard, right? But I think we as a vendor are going to jump on that, and you're going to see more and more stuff happening there as well. So I think that is going to be a big change in it. So it might be that, right, your first day on the job is opening up the official assigned vibe code loco tool, and you generate your own application, and you customize it a little bit with just using AI and some prompts, or you start off with a template. So I think in terms of process optimization, that paradigm is also going to be a big one as well. Of course, you don't want to have that data storage changing all the time, because that's going to be a mess. But that front bit, right, where you work in a day-to-day basis, that is going to be optimized in the future, right? Making use of AI and app generation.
Don, what do you think? And maybe even specifically looking in from that process perspective, right? I mean, when I think process, I think Pega.
Yeah, well, so I think the way we talk about enterprise applications is going to fundamentally change. And I think increasingly, and I think this is a little bit of what Chris was saying, I think there's going to be a bit of what I'll call sort of an AI operations layer that sits between the data and content and workflows that make up most organizations. Because right now, the way I get at my data, my workflows, or my content, if I log into application A, my CRM for this, and I log into my ERP for that, and I flash across all these different systems, and you do enough contact center walkthroughs where you watch people swivel chairing all the time, you realize it's still a freaking problem in industries. And I think there's an opportunity for us to use the power of agents to create what we've been thinking of as sort of like a process fabric. So being able to have a front end that pulls all of the workflows, the context, the data together, and then allowing the user to make a request, whether that's through chat, although I think sometimes we're still going to want to do stuff with forms because sometimes it's faster, but dispatching you to the right data, getting you to the right workflow, getting you to the right experience, regardless of what particular app you have to get to be logged into at any given time. And I think that's going to be a pretty dramatic shift for organizations. I also think that a lot of workflows are going to get rewritten because we've written workflows around the concept that humans are going to do the work. And I think we're moving to a world where more and more of that is not going to be done. I don't need a human being to translate my handwritten invoice from India and get it into a process anymore. So how do I redesign the workflows around this fact that we're going to assume most of this is going to be automated going forward?
Adam, I'm thinking about Workato, and I'm thinking about integration, right? And I'm thinking about access to data, and I'm thinking about the old world and what it looks like versus the new world, where I'm a worker and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I have access to massively more information in context as part of my productivity suite. I don't want to lead the witness here. How are things going to change, Adam? But I do think that the integration players in Workato
I appreciate my peer said. I was thinking, the thing that jumped out at me is like apps are quaint. Like we're talking about apps, but I don't think apps are the future. Like, why are we waiting on people to do stuff? I rebuilt my calendar where I work for a couple hours and I spend about an hour directing my agents, including overnight. Like, because they're going to do more work than I can do. They just need a little check-in and supervision sometimes. So we've rebuilt our vision of our product. You mentioned Workato Go. That's like our product where you can see our genies, our agents at work. And the model there is you're checking in on autonomous agents that are working against business KPIs. So they're working with sales. They're working with sales and service and customer support. They're working with those apps and those data and those business processes, but they're on a mission. And their mission is to make those key business KPIs better. And they will even improve. We have our agents can build assets in Workato. We have a capability called Arrow, like my peers have, to like build things in their platforms. But just like a human can describe what they want, an agent can describe what they want, and then we'll run that as an experiment and check in with a human and see if it works better. So the whole concept of humans, honestly, is kind of quaint because the workforce is going to be a mix of things. So I think the vibe stuff, look, the vibe stuff right now is working best. Let's just no BS. The vibe stuff right now is working best for websites and lightweight apps like that. Like that stuff just nails. Looks good. It's up in a moment. You can iterate on it. Like it's faster than trying to wireframe and design it. Like it's good. And that was the massive corpus that it was, these models are trained on. It's why it's really good. Vercel, Replit, Lovable, they're doing a really brilliant job of this. The substrates are the abstractions are mature. The substrates are mature. But that's not running your business. Your website helps generate leads. The website doesn't carry the lead all the way through, to become a customer for life. There's like a lot that's happened across your applications, in your business processes, inventing new business processes, varying the business processes by region or by regulatory requirement, all these things that we and our peers do here. So I honestly think it's a little bit of a distraction. You asked for a prediction. Sorry for the long-winded answer. I think the prediction is we're going to see a lot of the ARR turns out to be ERR in some of the Vibe platforms. And what will shake out are the ones that really win and have really durable value, don't just help people like prototype and get their dreams to life for a website or a front end, but really help them have an impact for like the company they're trying to start or the business they run or some function they're responsible for. I think that's where we'll start to see the long-term separations of winners and losers. And like all the enterprise people move slower than the pure play startups. Like that's just like normal because reasons and trust and backlog with customer. But like all of us, I think the people that are like super enterprise focused are moving really, really fast now. We have access to the same models. We have the same agentic loops. We have mature abstractions, mature substrates, and we can crank. So I think as we start to step back and look how businesses transform, our AI products are just off to the races. I'm sure my peers are. Like the growth rates are extraordinary. And so like the second part of the story is being written now. I'm friends with a lot of the vibe coding tools. They've done a brilliant, brilliant job and inspired people in their revenue spikes or historic epic stories. And I think we're about to go see that. Like we're seeing that right now with our use of Arrow and Genies and AI Workato. I'm sure my peers are seeing the same kind of rapid growth.
And we do talk to them a lot, right? And again, we love them. We think they're doing really cool work. We think they're doing really revolutionary work. I get concerned that some of the things that we talk about regarding governance, regarding orchestration, regarding integration, regarding on and on, security on and on. Oh, we'll build that. It's not that hard. Ooh, that's a scary answer. And I don't know that I want an enterprise trusting that answer with some of their with some of their core processes. Jessica, take us out. What are your thoughts on this topic?
As far as a prediction on what work will look like, I think that we're gonna look like a more unified ecosystem of tools working together. Kind of second what Don was saying, but also the rise of domain experts that will move into a space of more oversight, risk, governance, compliance in their role by definition and duties versus actually doing work that I once again back to those separated roles. I think there will be a vast separation of roles and the duties that will change to support that ecosystem and to continue to enable and govern AI from each department level and in the organization as a whole. Will be speaking more not just to IT, but CISO, CIOs, COOs, a lot more of them being a part of the process of adoption in the organization rather than going against what we're trying to accomplish with bringing in new technologies, converging with the old.
Great way to finish us out. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Adam, Chris, Dawn, Jessica, it's a pleasure. If you get a minute, all of these folks have done individual podcasts with us. They're all really good. You can go back and find them as well. And keep listening to Lowdown on Low Code. Again, we've got another one of these coming up with Microsoft ServiceNow Retool and perhaps a surprise guest to be announced later. But I just want to thank all my guests and thank everybody for listening today.